The wind howled across the high Arizona desert like a mourning woman when the Apache warrior called Shadow rode alone to the lone rancher's gate, her shadow long and sharp under the blood-red sunset, and before the startled white man could reach for his rifle, she swung down from her paint horse, stood a full head taller than him, and said in a voice rough as cedar bark, "I am so tired of being without a man." And those 8 words cracked the silence of 30 years of solitude like a bullet through glass. Hello, friend, if you love raw, untamed Wild West tales where the land is harsh and the hearts are harsher, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell so you never miss a story that burns like mescal and bites like rattlesnake venom. His name was Caleb Mercer, 42 summers old, beard going iron gray, hands scarred from branding irons and Comanche arrows, and he had not heard a woman's voice on his porch since his wife died birthing a child that never drew breath 15 years ago. He stood frozen on the warped pine boards while Shadow, daughter of the great war chief Nate, widow of 2 warriors killed by Mexican rurales, looked him over with eyes black and bright as obsidian. She wore a doeskin dress cut short for riding, fringed and beaded, a Spencer carbine across her back, and a Bowie knife at her belt big enough to get a steer. The ranch dogs growled low, then crept away with tails tucked. Even they knew when death or destiny walked on 2 legs. Caleb finally found his tongue. "Ma'am, this is the Diamond M, 20 miles from anything that calls itself civilization, and I ain't much company." She stepped closer until the scent of sage and horse sweat and gun oil filled his lungs. "I have buried 2 husbands and watched the soldiers burn my wickiups. I have ridden with Geronimo and seen the future in the smoke, empty lodges, empty hearts. I am done with war and done with mourning. I want a fire that stays lit, a man who does not flinch, and children who will speak both my tongue and yours. You have water, grass, and strong fences. I have strong arms and stronger will. We will make a bargain, white man, or I ride on and you die old and alone." Caleb felt the years peel away like bark from a lightning-struck pine. Something fierce and long asleep stirred behind his ribs. He opened the gate. That night they sat by the cook fire while the coyotes sang, and she told him how the old world was ending, how the buffalo were gone, how even the fiercest warriors grew weary of blood that never washed off. He told her about the night his Mary died, how he had buried her under a mesquite tree and never marked the grave because grief has no proper stone. They spoke little after that, only the crackle of juniper and the low moan of wind. When the moon climbed high she stood, took his calloused hand, and led him inside the cabin he had not shared with another soul since the Reagan administration. Dawn found them wrapped together under a Navajo blanket, her dark hair across his chest like spilled ink, and for the first time in 15 years Caleb Mercer woke smiling. Word travels strangely on the wind. Within a month the ranch hands who had quit years ago came drifting back, Mexicans, half-breeds, a runaway slave from Texas, drawn by rumors of an Apache woman who could break a bronc before breakfast, shoot the eye out of a hawk at 200 yards, and still have supper on the table by dark. Shadow turned the Diamond M from a dying outfit into a fortress of plenty. She bred tougher horses, drove cattle where no white man dared, and when rustlers from the Pleasance Valley gang rode and laughing about easy pickings, they rode out again, missing 3 men and all their arrogance. Caleb watched her rope and ride and laugh with that deep wild laugh. And every day he fell deeper into something that was not quite love as the preacher's baccy sold it, but a partnership forged in fire and necessity, harder and truer than any wedding ring. Yet the territory was not kind to mixed blood or mixed hearts. The fort commander at Bowie sent word that harboring a renegade squaw was a hanging offense. Preachers thundered from pulpits in Tucson about Jezebels and the sin of Onan. Old enemies remembered Shadow's face from reservation breakout raids. One October night, as frost silvered the corrals, 30 riders wearing sugar sacks over their heads torched the hay barn and called for the witch to come out and burn. Caleb stood on the porch with his Henry repeater, ready to die for the only thing that had made him glad to breathe in 15 years. But Shadow pushed past him, carrying not a rifle, but a coal oil lantern. She walked straight into the torchlight, tall and terrible, dress whipping in the wind like war banners, and began to sing the old death song of the Badonko in a voice that carried clear to the dragoons. The vigilantes faltered. Horses shied and would not advance. She raised the lantern high and spoke in English hard as winter iron. "You want fire? I will give you fire. But the first man who crosses my gate feeds the flames with his own carcass." Not a trigger finger moved. Somewhere a horse screamed and bolted, then another, and within minutes the night swallowed the mob whole. They never came back. Years turned like wagon wheels. Children came, 3 boys with their father's gray eyes and their mother's cheekbones sharp enough to cut rope, and a girl who could outrun the wind by the time she was 7. The Diamond M grew rich on beef contracts to the forts and on horses that fetched top dollar in California. Caleb's beard went white, but his back stayed straight, because every morning Chato braided his hair the Apache way and told him he was still the man she chose. When the Great Surrender came in '86 and Geronimo was shipped to Florida in chains, Chato rode alone to the reservation to say goodbye to her uncle. She returned thinner, quieter, eyes older than the mountains. That night she sat on the porch with Caleb, his head in her lap, and said, "The people are finished wandering. The circle is closed." He asked what she wanted now. She stroked his hair and answered, "Only this. Only you. Only tomorrow." In the spring of 1909, when the cottonwoods were leafing out green along the creek, Caleb woke before dawn and found her side of the bed cold. He found her sitting on the hill above the ranch, wrapped in the same Navajo blanket from their first night, watching the sun rise over land she had helped tame and that had tamed her in return. She was 60 if she was a day, but the years had only carved her more beautiful, like sandstone shaped by centuries of wind. He sat beside her, without speaking. After a long while she said, "I am no longer tired of being without a man." Caleb took her hand, felt the old scars from bowstrings and branding irons, and answered, "And I am no longer tired of living." That evening she lay down under the mesquite where his first wife rested, and did not wake again. Caleb buried her there with Apache tobacco and a lock of his own white hair, then carved no stone, because some names are too large for granite. He ran the ranch another 10 years, until the oldest boy was ready, then rode out one morning with nothing but his old Henry, and the paint horse Chato had broken for him 30 winters before. They found him months later in the Chiricahuas, sitting against a rock with a smile on his face and the rifle across his knees, looking east toward the rising sun. The Diamond M still stands, bigger now, worked by grandchildren who speak Spanish, English, and Apache with equal ease. Sometimes at dusk, riders say, if the wind is right, you can see a tall woman in fringed doeskin and a gray-bearded rancher walking the ridgeline together, checking the herds that will never again be few. And if you ride close enough, you might hear her laugh, deep and wild, and his quieter answer, the sound of 2 hearts that refuse to die alone in a land that forgives no weakness, but sometimes, just sometimes, rewards the brave. So tell me, partner, from what corner of this wide world are you watching tonight? Texas, Montana, Scotland, Australia, or some city apartment 1,000 miles from any horse? Drop your town or your country in the comments below, so we can put a pin on the map and know the Wild West still lives in hearts everywhere. See you down the trail.